Bonjour, Kinamagi and Ireland Dishnikas, and welcome to this production of Social Studies Explorer. Today's episode, Gullah Geechee. The other culture that sees many of its people relocated. The people of West Africa brought their culture with them despite the hardships of slavery. This is no different than when Native American nations were forced to relocate or any other group of people over time that moves. You carry something with you: language, beliefs, stories, music. And today we're going to talk about one of these regional groups, the Gullah Geechee. And while there are many other stories that could be told, we focused this time on this group. And Gullah Geechee isn't a single place name on a map. It refers to the people that live on the islands that stretch through Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, many of them descendants of people who grew rice and indigo, almost always the descendant of slaves. I'm going to begin with a video clip from PBS that's going to talk about the Gullah Geechee, and then we will have a little more conversation on that following the video. This comes from a program known as Palmetto Scene. South Carolina is the Palmetto State. And this segment is going to look at elements of the Gullah Geechee community, including food and language.
Many of the Gullah Geechee people adopted Christianity, but the law for hundreds of years prohibited them from learning to read. It was a law that did not allow them to fully appreciate the word. But today that's changed, and there's even a Gullah version of the Bible.
Jesus tell his disciples them say, must don't let on a heart be heavy. Must trust God and trust in me too. Plenty room there in my father's house. I go in there for make the place ready for her. If it ain't been so, I been for telling her. And as I done make the place ready for her, I gonna come back for take her with me and go to that place so that her too gonna be with me there.
You know, the Bible is just really the backbone of our people. You know, we were raised on this. Our foreparents, those before us. This is what they knew. They really didn't know it. They were just going on hearsay because they couldn't read. But you know, just the little main parts is what they knew, and they would just pass it on and pass it on. And now that we know it, and we know that this is a language that they brought here from Africa, and that this language, the one they brought from Africa, and the American language that they met when they got here, they just had to put it together.
We started back in 78, and it took us 26 years to do the entire process. And in 2005, we presented the Gullah Bible New Testament.
I was hiding from them. I didn't want anything to do with that project because Gullah was not a language that was embraced by us at the time. In fact, Penn School was a school that was really started to transform Africans into mainstream Americans. And so their language was one of the things that was not embraced by the teachers. They transformed that speech pattern into really perfect English. And so you get to talk to Penn School graduates, and they've forgotten how to speak Gullah. When I came as director, that was my role as director, to really continue what Penn School had started.
Mr. Campbell says he had an epiphany when he came to understand the relationship between Gullah and West African languages. Translating the New Testament into Gullah was a grueling, time-consuming process. But for the translators, the end result was more than worth all they sacrificed.
Oh my God. Oh my God, the day that we were at the Wycliffe Bible Society and they presented us with this book, oh my God, all I could do was just hold it to my heart and just look up and just thank God for this 26 years. I mean, we did this thing. When our linguists moved to Florida, we made trips to Florida, to North Carolina, to get this book done.
The Creole language of the Gullah Geechee people was a survival tool. It allowed these enslaved people from different tribes in Africa to communicate. Their songs, too, were a form of communication, a secret code not understood by those who enslaved them.
Way down, Lordy, way down in Egypt land. They sold me, baby, If you don't talk about Africa, then you really can't even begin to talk about Gullah music. Way down, Lordy, way. A lot of the Gullah spirituals are really pure West African chants that the Africans, those tunes they brought here with them in the belly of the slave ship.
With the singing, the workers formed a community. Everyone worked together. So to the music, to the rhythm, whatever job was being done would go along a lot faster and easier. Oh, day, yonder come day. Oh, day, yonder come day. Oh, day, yonder come day. Day done broke in my soul. Yonder come day. Think if they were using mortars and pestles, they could all pound together to the rhythm that would be set by the music.
And the music would just take you someplace else and would give you that release. Everything went into our music. And for us, our music would transcend us to a place where chains and whips and lynching trees could not touch us. So when folks start talking about black folks have so much soul in their music, it was the good, the bad, and the ugly. We could put it all in the music. And it was like almost releasing some of the pressure of slavery itself.
But sometimes, most times their songs were used, coded message songs. In the spirituals, spirituals were generally about characters or events in the Bible. And when they would sing songs, sometimes there would be words that would be used that the enslavers did not know. Mary had a baby, eh, Lord. Mary had a baby, eh, my Lord. Mary had a baby, eh, Lord. The people keep a-coming, but the train done gone. Train done gone was a code used for the Underground Railroad, that system of secret escape routes leading from slavery in the South. When that song would be sung, it would be to inform others that the escape opportunity that had been planned had been aborted. The people keep a-coming, but the train done gone.
It's wonderful that each generation creates something new, but everything has to have a root, and Gullah music is that tap root. And so you always want kids to know the beginning, and that from that you take that, and just like a tree starts out with a seed, and a seed grows into a tree, and the tree eventually blossoms and brings forth fruit. We want them to continue to bring forth fruit, but if you do not have the roots, then eventually it dies out. So we have to always remind the kids, the young people, of the root of our history. That it's a very rich history. And one of the things we want to make sure they understand is not a history of shame, but it's a history of perseverance and tenacity and strength.
What did you name 'em? Hey, Lord. What did you name 'em? Hey, my Lord. What did you name 'em? Hey, Lord. The people keep a-coming, but the train done gone. She name 'em King Jesus. Hey, Lord. Lily of the valley. Hey, my Lord. Prince of Peace, hey Lord, the people keep a-coming, but the train done gone.
Rice, okra, hoppinjan, yams, all are foods with origins in West Africa. Today, they are ingredients often found in a good low-country meal.
The Gullah cuisine has been influenced by many places around the world. But once the Gullah people settled in South Carolina, before there were even colonies, is where many traditions were born. But when it comes to the food, it's more than just what you eat.
We say that Gullah food is as old as the South and as ancient as the world. The tradition of food is an equalizer. It is the one thing that breaks down all barriers, gender, race, whatever the case might be. So it is kind of like the way to just clear the air and have fellowship. And everything we do, everything of importance, is accompanied by food. And it has always been that way.
Chef B.J. Dennis has a long line of ancestors, and he can trace his roots back to West Africa. His grandparents grew up on a farm on what is now known as Daniel Island, and farming has always been the root of the cuisine.
A lot of West Africans came, they were already with the knowledge of agriculture, which I think one of the main reasons why they were brought here, with the knowledge of growing rice, the knowledge of growing crops, the greens. So it was almost embedded into the culture, it's in the DNA. So I think what you see with Gullah food is just basically, low country cuisine. So I think some of it, yes, is based off of survival and just a way of life.
And that way of life centuries ago was rice, which has always been considered a staple. And ironically, as Veronica Gerald, a professor and author of the Ultimate Gullah Cookbook, says, it was also the food that enslaved them.
Rice is a staple. It's really interesting what happened. The West African women were growing rice centuries ago. And as people were coming along the West Coast, they stopped to buy the rice to feed their crew, and suggested that we try it here in the Carolina colony, and it became a staple in the Carolina colony about the mid-1700s. If you are a respectable Gullah person and you have a meal, rice has to be a part of it. Most families have what they call a rice pot, and that's what you do with that pot. You cook rice in it, and everyone calls it the rice pot. Back in the day when rice didn't have as many preservatives as it does today, it had a tendency to cake. And the person having to clean the rice pot, it was a dreaded job. But woe be it to the person who did not have the rice pot ready for the next meal.
You automatically think rice, because they say we eat rice for everything. Okra and rice, shrimp okra rice, okra and tomatoes, okra soup with butter beans and corn and some smoked meat and some shrimp in it. So I think those are some of the real big dishes, but rice dishes.
Along with rice comes many other traditional Gullah foods, from the ground and the sea.
We as a people believe that the root of anything is not only valuable, but it's medicinal. So carrots, peanuts, potatoes coming out of the ground, that is the valuable food. And now as you look around at what people are calling medicinal food, they are now including root crops. Those are very essential. You cannot have a meal without sweet potatoes when they're in season.
But it's much more than what's put on the stove that makes this unique cuisine what it is.
what is passed down is not the recipe, it is the taste that you look for when you're trying to prepare this food. So if you're making a dish and you're adding a cup of this and a cup of that and a teaspoon of this, you taste the whole time, and it's when you get to the taste that you remember, that's when you stop.
So, more than any Gullah traditions, food is something that all generations can learn and continue to pass on not only to their family, but to their communities.
Even the youngest of the Gullah Geechee people today believe certain things that have been passed down. They may not practice it, but they believe it.
Very important to carry on traditions, because if you don't have a grasp of your past, you don't know who you are. You don't know where you're going, who you're going to be in life. And to have these traditions carry on, keeps a legacy alive. We have a very special culture. There's no other culture like this in this country.
And with the help of people like Veronica and BJ, it will continue to be that way now and in the future.
So to keep the traditional values is very, very important. Very important, especially for my generation. Because we're the ones who have to carry it on. And if we don't carry it on, it's going to be lost.
He describes his talent as God-given. Thomas Williams, better known as the Stick Man, is a fourth generation.
What we see there should bring some comparisons to what we know about our own culture, the value of language, the value of stories, the value of food and how we raise our food and how we find it. Similarity in rice. The Gullah Geechee is just one example of cultures that have come to the United States from other places and continue to survive despite the mainstreaming of so much of American culture. I hope that it has piqued your interest, as preparation for this lesson involved me watching a lot of YouTube videos and reading, and I plan on reading a lot more about the topic. It was kind of neat, and it's not something that you find in many of our textbooks. We heard the word Creole, which means when you combine parts of two different cultures or two different languages and share it in one. We hear that term occasionally, but seldom do we understand it. At this point, you should return to the Google Classroom. There will be some questions on the topic, potentially some additional links for your enjoyment if you'd like to read more. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. I did. And I hope you all have a Minogijigad, Minwa Amapi.